everybody. Well, we are back with the next video in our viewer question and answer series. We're here with Blythe from Nebraska, and we've been chatting because we kind of have this back connection, sort of, because she grew up in the town that I live in now. And so, talking about the things we have in common, sort of, like, it's really fun. And your grandparents used to take care of a cemetery that's near me, and I love it. I think it's so fun. And now you're in Nebraska. Like, no more middle America than that, is there?
Right? We're almost smack dab in the middle.
Blythe is busy at home. She's got 5 babies, 5 fur babies. Like, that's just a full day. 2 kids rule my world. I can only imagine. Maybe more chaos is better. I don't know.
Yeah, I think once you hit like 3, there is no difference. It's all crazy.
Yeah. Once they outnumber you, like I say, I have 2 hands, 2 kids, we're good. Once there's 3, like, it's got to be a free for all or something. Oh, well, tell me, you have 3 questions for me. So what's your first question?
What was the defining moment for you growing up that you decided this was the path that you wanted to take? Was there like one certain thing that stuck out that was like, this is what I want to do? Or was it just kind of over time?
I think there's a lot of little moments that piqued interest, but once I decided to try the business, I definitely had, so it was, and I think I've talked about it before. So I was doing a funeral for a little girl named Jenna, and she had been born with heart problems. She had had multiple heart surgeries. Like, she had just been a very sick little girl, and she died. And I was helping her mom get things set up for the funeral, or for the visitation. And it was just me and her. I was doing my apprenticeship. I think I was like 2 weeks into my apprenticeship, if that. Like, it was very early on. I had never done this. I had never worked with a mom getting her daughter's casket set up and putting things in with her. Like, I was just kind of doing my best. And she brought me her Girl Scout ring to put on her finger. And so I went up and put it on her finger, and I was like, I'm doing this. Like, I am being this person for this mom, and we're having this moment, just me and her, in this room together, taking care of this little girl. And I think that probably was the pivotal moment. I could have never told you that was it, but now, years later, looking back, like, that kind of was it for me. That's when I feel like I knew there was purpose to what I was doing, and it wasn't a job. I wasn't looking for a career. Like, it was just my thing. And that summer, when I did my apprenticeship that summer, we had a lot of young deaths. We buried another 19-year-old. That was really tragic. A 32-year-old. Like, I have folders from all those 4 funerals. I saved them all because they're all like photos on the folders and like their stories. And they were such big parts of my life. And so I saved those along the years, just the ones that were big to me. And I get them out every once in a while, and I look at them, and it's just like it happened yesterday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this was 1998. No, 1999, the summer of 99. That was a long time ago, but it feels like yesterday. I can smell the building. I can see the family. The moment when the 32-year-old's sister walked in and fell to her knees, because it was like that realization, like, holy moly, this is it. This is real. So a lot of those, I think those first big moments just like set it into me that I was doing what I needed to do. It was like God smacking me in the face over and over, like, this is it. This is it. This is it. Like, are you listening yet? And so, yeah, like, that's so fun to think about back then, because it was so big of a moment for me, that whole summer of figuring things out and figuring out how to do the work, and a lot of things I'd never seen before, been part of, or embalming and doing that for the first times. And yeah, it was big, but those would probably be those initial first. But that moment putting on that ring it kind of sealed the deal, I feel like, for me. So That's a big question. I didn't realize I'd kind of ramble on that one, but
Oh, that's okay.
it was good. It was good.
Good. I'm glad to hear the memory. Like
Yeah.
usually in stuff, looking back, people can pick out something that might have stuck out more than other things. And that's good to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, there's moments I think when I was in high school, like I can pick out things that kind of piqued my interest, like seeing somebody who had been shot in the head and like, wait a minute, how did you do that? Because I don't see any holes, and like a guy who'd had not a motorcycle, a snowmobile accident. And I was like, there's no way. And he looked just fine. And I'm like, how did he do that? So these things that made me interested in that side of it, the body side, that kind of made me want to know more. I was curious. As my mom said, you were always curious. You just didn't know it. And you had to get to the point where you knew it. It's like your mom telling you you're dating the wrong boy and you never
Right.
believe it until you realize for yourself. And then it's like, okay, mom was right all along,
Damn it.
she's pretty much usually right. I always tell my girls, I am always going to know what's going on with you. And I blow them away sometimes by knowing things. And I'm usually going to be right. And my husband's like, she is just under. And I'm like, because my mom's always right. So, it is what it is. But, yeah. Okay. Number 2.
Question 2 is, when you're in mortuary school and you're learning embalming and things like that, where do those deceased come from? Do families donate them or agree to have you prepare them in a school, or how does that work?
No, it's a great question. So it depends on the school. Some schools don't have an on-site even lab.
Oh, okay.
Like Worsham in Chicago area, in Wheeling, Illinois, they go actually down to the Cook County morgue and they do preparation on, unclaimed and people there. So they do prep work there on site on individuals. Some mortuary schools, they go out to area funeral homes and they'll assist funeral directors. So it means that a lot of funeral directors have kind of volunteered their time as mentors for people to come in and embalm with them during the course of the time that they're at school. At Cincinnati, where I went, it was a lot of area funeral homes. They contracted with the school. So I would assume then that when the families sign an embalming authorization, they are allowing that a student or somebody learning might be working on their loved one. Because it's always under the oversight of a licensed lab instructor. So there's always somebody there watching us to make sure we're not messing up. So we did a lot of individuals that funeral homes didn't want to take care of. So it was really good experience because we got a lot of, floaters from the lake or from the river, car accidents, gunshots. We got exposed to a lot, I feel like, in mortuary school, because that was what funeral homes didn't want to deal with.
Right.
Tissue donors, organ donors, people like that. But then we also did a lot of preparation on people who had donated to medical schools, to science. So they had a large program through Cincinnati that individuals that donated their bodies, we would do the first ejection. So essentially we would raise a vessel, put in as much fluid as we could. There's no aspirating, there's nothing else. We're just trying to put fluid in to preserve them for the medical schools. And so we got a lot of practice setting features and raising vessels on those individuals because they were going to the medical school. Those individuals, we would then put in a cooler for 2 days. They had to set. Then we would bring them back out and we would inject them again with another fluid, and it would kind of swell them up as full as we could get them with those fluids. We would also shave their heads and wrap them in Vaseline and cheesecloth to preserve their heads. And we did that. They told us it was because it would desensitize the medical students to the cadavers, because that's what they are once you donate your body. So that way they're not like looking at hair and looking at, these distinguishing features, kind of seeing them as a person, more so just as a donated body. So it kind of dehumanized. I don't even know the right for that, but so
So it's,
processed. Pardon?
so it's not so personal.
I think so. It just kind of helps them, especially first year of medical school and things when it's kind of new, and helps them get into the process maybe a little bit easier, I guess. But I hated shaving their heads. That was like the worst thing. I felt like I was, a Nazi at Auschwitz shaving somebody or something. Like it really disturbed me to have to do that. So that was one thing I absolutely hated in mortuary school, was shaving the heads on these people who had donated. It was just weird. I always, like, when I think to doing those, there's one person's face I will never forget, and I couldn't even probably explain it to you, but I remember just shaving her head and then wrapping her in. I'll always remember her head, because I just hated doing it so much. It just felt demoralizing for that person, even though that's what they chose and that's what they were doing. It just was weird, very weird to do. So, man, we're getting deep, Blythe. Goodness.
I'm sorry.
Oh my goodness. All right. What's number 3? Are we lighthearted on this one? Or are we?
I don't know, maybe. What was the reason you decided to stop managing the funeral home and become a trade embalmer?
So I had been at a funeral home, and that was like a chain, not a chain, but they had multiple locations for a while. And it got to the point, like, we didn't see eye to eye. Like, I am that kind of person. I now preach to students, like, don't stay somewhere too long that doesn't work for you personally, because then you end up like creating a really bad situation for yourself, and you end up really not liking the business for a while. And that's what happened. I just was there, and they didn't know how to give time to you to be a person. Like, I was going on a 2 a.m. call, embalming, running home to shower, coming back, snow blowing, then meeting with a family, getting somebody ready, working visitation till 9 o'clock at night, setting up the chapel, then going home, sleeping. It just wasn't working. I had a marriage that was failing. I had my first marriage. It was, so it was a lot of really rough. So then I left, and I had a non-compete, so I couldn't work in the business for a while. And I worked as a service writer at a Ford dealership, and learned about cars, which was kind of fun, and just kind of, being somebody else for a minute, I guess, and experience. And I started missing it. I started missing all of it. And an opportunity came up. Somebody contacted me and said, "Hey, would you like to cover when I go on vacation?" And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know this was a thing." And when I started doing it, I realized how nice it was to go in, cover for a few days, get to know a community a little bit, and then leave, and not get caught up maybe in all of the drama and politics of a business and the hierarchies and the miscommunication and all of that. So it was nice to not be part of that, but still get to do the work. So then I did that for a couple years, and I had a lot of great customers that I did that for. I loved doing it. But I was traveling, and I'd be gone for however many days and come back. So then I got pregnant, and I was like, all right, it's time. I can't embalm right now. So let's maybe find some place around here I can fill in for. And it worked. That I found a place. It had just been bought. They asked if I wanted to work there full time and kind of manage it. And I said, sure. But it was a thing where the whole time I said, what do you want me to do? Like, constantly asking, how can I not fail you, and getting no response. And I hate working in gray area, but I think there's a lot of people that don't know how to give you definition as to what they want. They only know how to maybe tell you after you failed or not meet their expectations. And that's what it turned into. It turned into just a really, we just kind of kept conflicting and conflicting and conflicting. And so we got to a point, there was a man there that he was saying things and doing things that were inappropriate. I'm not one to yell sexual harassment, because it's really hard to harass me, I feel like. But saying, hey, can we just get him to stop? Because I've told him and he's not, and he's talking to a lot of females, like, really inappropriately. Like, I don't want these text messages, like, and I can't get him to stop. But then we had to file paperwork, and we had to do this, and it turned into this big deal. But then I was moved to work with him all the time. And I'm like, this isn't like, what is going on? And it was kind of like, I felt like I was set up to fail. So I ended up getting let go from that position because we just kept doing this, and I should have left. I was in a relationship. I didn't know when I needed to leave, kind of my mom always needs to tell you. And so I was let go. And at first I was like, I never failed my job. I never failed the families. I never failed at being a funeral director. I just failed at meeting, working with the people that I needed to work with in the right way, because I wasn't being given any help or information that I could succeed with. And I'm sure I did things wrong, because it just, I probably open my mouth. I run my mouth too much and speak my mind. And as my husband will tell you. And so, what it is. But the blessing of that was I got to step back and look at what I loved about the business. And that's the thing, is I stay too long and I end up just wanting to be away from the business. But then if I can step back, I see what I love about the business. And so I started down this new journey where I was trying to connect in different ways. And then the videos started. And then here we are 3 crazy years later. And it has been such a great thing. And then I started back into some trade embalming and some freelance work. And so I do both, hit or miss, and it comes in ebbs and flows. I have one great funeral home I'm working with now that I work with them pretty consistently. And it's a huge staff. So of course, there's days I'm like, because I'm there enough now, I'm like, oh man, the drama of the communication and the people. And so I'm like, oh, but I do like working with them and stuff. So it kind of goes all over the place, I guess, but there's good and bad. And I would never, at this point, I don't want to go back full-time ever on a funeral home staff, because I feel like it's not the right match for me, because I end up, it never is what I always want it to be. And I can't just keep my mouth closed, because I'm always like, if something can be better, let's make it better. And I can't just exist in the space. And that's my problem, I guess. But I wouldn't want to own my own one either, though, because there's a lot of pressure. And worrying about, okay, are enough people going to die this month and call us for me to pay bills, or for me to do this, or how do I even get a break if I'm running it and it's just me? So there's too much tie down that you get with that we as a family don't want. We've decided that that's something we don't really want, unless we bought one and paid managers to run it, and we got to try and just make sure it was as good as we could make it and pour into it. So yeah, that was a really long answer to that one too. I'm rambly today. Holy.
You needed it.
I did. I needed to get out some spent up energy. People are going to be like, has Kari been drinking? It's been a day, guys. Blake has heard, like, as soon as she got on, I was like telling her about some drama going on. And so it's made me in a little bit of a spin today. So I have not been drinking. I promise. That accuses me of drinking all the time. I've got my LaCroix, and it's not spiked. But, yeah. So, well, thank you for joining me with questions. Those were good. Those are really good. Those are really emotionally, some people want to know more about like the body work, and some people want to know, it's kind of been all over the place, the questions, which has been really fun. It's for me, and most people have been asking different questions and all over the place. I love it. So kind of challenges me. But,
well, I'm so glad I got a chance to talk to you.
Yay. Yeah, I feel like I've talked to you 100 times. Like I jumped right into this, just spewing out. So crazy. But all right. Well, thanks guys for joining us, and watch for the next video with a viewer from across the country. Bye guys.